Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in, and according to Zillow, home buyers are starting to panic as a result of not just unaffordability, but the incoming potential credit freezes as a result of the recent banking meltdown. So today we're going to really dig into 3 different Zillow articles just to see how Zillow is painting the picture. And don't forget, the environment that we're in right now is actually what we want. This is what healing looks like, and this is what healing feels like. As long as the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, they don't start lowering rates, I think we're just going to be just fine, even if they pause the interest rate hike. To be honest, the home price crash would have continued to accelerate. The problem is as a result of the lack of inventory, topped with well-qualified buyers that are okay with paying for overvalued houses. There's so many of those buyers still that it has momentarily caused home price declines to stabilize a little bit. And it's really important to understand this. Naturally, right now in this environment, naturally, the housing market is crashing. It's because of seasonal trends right now, which means buying season is coming up. It's those seasonal trends that are actually slowing down the housing market crash. If we take away those seasonal trends, the housing market is naturally going down. Something to put in perspective, and we all know that the Federal Reserve is in control. Regardless, understand that I'm just a normal person. I am a frustrated renter. Even though I've converted my primary residence to a rental, I've decided to rent right now, put my money where my mouth is, and wait out this housing market. And I am frustrated with these buyers, and I'm frustrated overall because I absolutely love real estate. I think everyone should own real estate, and generally it's the greatest investment of our lives. But right now, the housing market is broken. And having said that, y'all, if you agree that the housing market's broken, please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously, something's going on with YouTube. I have no idea what it is, but if you can show me some love, like the video, share the video, hit notifications, that will help. Now, either way, let's jump into our first of 3 Zillow articles now. Here's where we'll start. The name of the first article is Inflation Slowed More Than Expected in February. Housing Costs Still Held Back Progress. We'll go over the recent inflation reports because everyone's trying to figure out, when will the Fed pivot? When will they reduce interest rates? And we don't want that to happen. If the Federal Reserve pivots too soon, it can create an even bigger problem. The personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, price index rose 0.3% in February after increasing 0.6% in January. Core PCE, the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, also rose 0.3% month over month. So it still went up. What it means: although prices are still 5% higher when compared to a year ago, the pace of price increases slowed further in February. Annual goods inflation slowed to 3.6% in February, all the way down from 4.7% in July. However, and I've highlighted this, services, especially shelter costs, continue to hold back disinflation. And I'm going to say it like this: I don't think disinflation is going to work. I think we need deflation, specifically in the housing market. And again, one way to actually target the housing market specifically are credit restrictions, tighter lending guidelines. That's probably something that we're going to see coming forward in the immediate future, because what we're seeing is there are so many systematic failures. The economy can't even handle 6% interest rates. It's the craziest thing ever. 6-7% interest rates are absolutely wrecking our economy. And yet the home price crashes have plateaued. Again, emotional buyers, well-qualified buyers that don't care about overpaying. And maybe they don't care about overpaying because they're migrating from somewhere like New York to Houston, where the cost of living is probably 70% lower. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's get back to this. The latest inflation data is another step in the right direction. This is according to Zillow's senior economist, and ought to eventually pull down mortgage rates. As inflation falls longer term, U.S. Treasury yields should fall, with mortgage rates following. This is good news for would-be buyers who have been frustrated by affordability challenges. But the reality is that's actually not good news for prospective buyers, because we need the prices to go down, not necessarily the interest rates. When the price comes down, then it's good news. But the prices as of right now, in my opinion, they need to go down even more than they've already gone down. And I believe that's going to happen, or I would not be renting out this house right now going crazy. However, more restrictive lending due to the recent banking turmoil could keep mortgage rates elevated in the near term and keep the housing market on ice in what is typically the hottest time of the year. Higher mortgage rates are keeping many sellers on the sidelines who do not want to give up their current mortgage rate that has a much lower rate. The current pace of disinflation is roughly in line with the Federal Reserve's projections. However, slow progress on the inflation front is in part due to housing. So again, remember that inflation is stickiest in the housing market. It is the most difficult inflation to control in the housing market. A lot of things have to break in order for prices to continue to go down. And I'll argue that a lot of things have already broke, especially none other than fundamentals because of the massive equity growth. Let's continue. Now, here's what I've been watching as well. Here's the last bullet point that I want to point out on this article. Annual rent for tenant-occupied non-farm housing increased to 8.8% in February from 8.6% in January. So the pace of rent growth, although a lot slower, has increased again. I think the rent prices will continue to go down, especially because as more commercial inventory, commercial residential comes to the market, it should create enough inventory for rent that the rent prices go down until we have a foreclosure explosion. Once we start having massive amounts of foreclosure, I actually think that rent will then start going up once again. Moving on to our second article titled Mortgage Rates Edged Up as Bank Contagion Risk Moderates. This is very brief. Mortgage rates increased this week as concerns about the fragility of the banking system may be subsiding. But remember, y'all, we saw the black swan. We saw the systematic failure. They did money printing to save it. But the systematic failure is there. Don't forget that. The recent banking sector turmoil ignited fears of a looming credit crunch. The supply of bank credit is an important driver of macroeconomic outcomes with significant implications for employment and output. All right. So this is probably where we're going to start getting even more unemployment from the credit crunch. A contraction in supply of commercial and industrial loans would result in a rapidly cooling of the U.S. economy. And this, again, is also probably where we get our recession from. Those fears seem to be moderating, and a number of leading indicators suggest the U.S. economy is still on solid footing. That means inflation may still be slow to come down, leaving the door open for more Fed policy tightening and causing rates to remain elevated. Remember in 2008, they did something similar through the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. They essentially changed lending, drastically changed lending, which felt like overnight. So if that happens this time around, we're done. We're good. We probably can go back to 4 and 5% interest rates, depending on the lending restrictions. But listen to this. The tighter the lending restrictions, the lower the interest rates can go. The looser the lending restrictions, the higher interest rates need to go in this environment. Looking at our third Zillow article titled Zillow Home Value and Sales Forecast, March 2023. And really what I want to point out here is we just cannot trust Zillow. We just can't trust them. I mean, they're glorified cheerleaders. It's just the craziest thing. But let's read a little bit about what Zillow feels like is going to happen to prices in 2023. Recent home price resilience, again, the thing is that recent home price resilience, the thing with that is markets are different. I get that. So we look at national averages to see what's incoming, right? We have historical price decline. How are prices resilient? The thing is it feels, our emotions feel like it's resilient. And the reason why it feels that way is because home prices went up so much. 10% drop feels like nothing. Just saying, back to the article. So anyways, recent home price resilience, according to Zillow, has resulted in Zillow's latest home value forecast being revised up slightly compared to last month. The National Zillow Home Value Index, which rose 4.4% year over year ending in February, is expected to rise 0.6% over the next 12 months. So it is a little bit optimistic, but not crazy optimistic, because they're only saying 0.6% growth, right? Obviously, you guys, this is telling us something bad is happening in the housing market. Y'all see that? Even if it's not in your housing market, Jeff, Vital Signs, Johnny, even if it's not in your housing market, you have to admit red flags incoming, right? Red flags all over, even if it's not in yours. And generally, we know it's a contagion. It spreads generally. Going back to the article, Zillow expects 4.3 million existing home sales in 2023 compared to 5 million sales in 2022. So they expect the housing market to continue to decline. But Zillow forecasts growth of 0.5% in 2023. Now, here's what's very interesting. These forecasts do not reflect the recent turmoil in the banking sector and subsequent changes to monetary policy, which have introduced fresh uncertainty to the outlook for the economy and housing market. So the thing is, y'all, and I still think people are doing this, and I think this is a massive problem. I still think these forecasters are not pricing in a recession. I still think they're not doing that. I believe that we're in a recession right now. Now, I anticipated when I made my year-end video that we would have our confirmed recession in Q3 of this year. And so far, that looks exactly like what's going to happen. But it's really, really shocking to me that a lot of these, economists and forecasters, why aren't they giving us forecasts with a recession? Why is it all rainbows and sunshine? It's really, really shocking to me. In conclusion, the Federal Reserve has to continue their quantitative tightening until they see the labor market take a hit, or rather unemployment start going up. And we also know that Jerome Powell is also looking at shelter and rent. And until we get shelter costs down, the QT, or the high interest rates, are just going to stay here. So I say to you, guard your emotions. It's really hard not to get emotional in environments like we have right now. And a lot of people say, because of inflation, the dollar, all of these things, that real estate is where we should invest. And the problem with that is we've already maxed out real estate. It hit the ceiling. It's on the way down. So it just doesn't work anymore, y'all. At least that's in my opinion. But do me a favor. I want you to respond in my comment section and let me know how you feel about where we're at right now and where we're headed in the economy. I believe this is exactly where we need to be, and we need to stay in order for an affordability to essentially reset. Now, once that happens, yes, U-turn, Federal Reserve, lower interest rates. But if you do that in advance, it will just create an even worse situation for us all. Again, I want to hear from you. And other than that, I hope you guys got some new value, insights, and perspective from today's video. And if you're out there investing in real estate, I wish you luck, and I hope you win.